Solana is arguably one of the most undervalued cryptocurrencies right now, and we're going to cover why that is. We're going to dive into some recent news, some critical updates around Solana, and then dive into some chart analysis and price predictions. So we're going to come back to this chart in just a bit and start off with a little bit of news. So first of all, Solana had a lot of drama surrounding Solend specifically in its DeFi ecosystem. So basically, one whale within Solana had $108 million out there worth of a loan, and it nearly drained the entire liquidity pool for Solend. Now, the couple updates that have come out just in the last 12 or so hours are really, really critical in terms of dismantling the worries about it crashing, the Solana network. So Solend actually came out and said that this user has now diversified across a few lending venues so that it's not putting all the pressure on Solend to have that liquidity. So now having this diversification should take off that initial pressure, and they're going to continue talking with the user to make sure that this gets solved. So it sounds like it was more of, yes, a legitimate concern, but at the same time, it seems like this is getting sorted out, and we'll continue to update you as that progresses. Now, the one thing I want to point out, because this has caused kind of a worry across, hey, Solana DeFi could collapse, or, Solana DeFi is really in trouble. And while that loan is a concern, I think really what we have to do is zoom out, right? So if you can see here, obviously, we're way down from our all-time high in terms of total value locked for Solana DeFi, right? We're up close to 12 billion, and now we're down near 2.2 billion. But I think what's important to keep in mind is how fast we got to that 12-ish billion marker, right? So if we just go back to a year ago around this same time, we're still 5 to 6x in terms of total value locked what we were a year ago in Solana. So if you were to say, hey, Solana's gonna 5 to 6x from a year back, you would have invested in it, right? So I think a lot of this concern is it's not unwarranted, but at the same time, if we zoom out, we're doing quite all right in terms of total value locked and the value of DeFi, and the amount of people coming into the ecosystem, the amount of money being locked in the Solana DeFi ecosystem. So just wanted to point that out as well. Now, another thing, this kind of ties a little bit into DeFi, but more so on the NFT side. We're seeing increased volume, like serious increased volume, and the increased number of traders on MagicEden, which is the main, it's basically the OpenSea of Solana. And we're comparing that to OpenSea here in this graphic. So if we look at just the last quarter over quarter change, just the last 3 months, what we're seeing here is that the amount of traders has gone up 150%, and the volume has gone up 290% on MagicEden. So now it's really, really starting to, in terms of the number of traders, it's past OpenSea. A lot of the volume that it's doing, at least in this 3-month period, has passed OpenSea. So a lot of momentum, a lot of interest coming in to Solana NFTs, and I think that is really mirrored here in this extremely important piece of news. So MagicEden just today raised 130 million, hitting unicorn status at a $1.6 billion evaluation. Now, that is massive, right? Because that means that there are VCs coming in, looking at their financials, looking at their business plan, looking at what they have on the roadmap, looking at, is this a viable company that will be, a part of the future of crypto in the next, 5 to 10 years. So there are people looking through their books, looking through their business plan, and they like what they see. And MagicEden is now, also riding that wave of growth as well. So great to see on the NFT front. Now, I think a lot of people, with this crypto crash have forgot just how much institutional attention Solana was receiving at the height of the last kind of crypto peak, right, between the fall and early winter, right? And this was just the beginning of this year. Bank of America was saying they see Solana becoming the Visa of the crypto world. And a lot of the times you see these crazy thumbnails, these crazy titles about institutional investment, but it's one thing for them to say it, and then it's another thing for institutions to actually start doubling down on Solana, doubling down on other crypto. So we have seen this. Now, this article is from May, but the trend has continued through June. And institutional investors are betting on Bitcoin and Solana amid the crypto downtrend. Now, we're going to look at some of those numbers, but it's really, really interesting because it has really been specifically Bitcoin and Solana that they've been consistently doubling down on week to week, month to month. Now, let's dive in and see what those numbers actually look like so we can kind of break this down. So here we're going to see, now this is all in millions. but we're going to see the flows by asset. This is on a weekly basis, and then it has the month-to-date breakdown and the year-to-date breakdown. Now, obviously, it's no surprise that Bitcoin's at the top of that, right? I mean, it's the safest crypto asset right now. Institutions like predictability. They like to have, safety within their risk, if that makes sense, right? So obviously Bitcoin is that obvious first choice. But if we scroll down, really a lot of unpredictable, at least for me, data coming in here, right? So we've seen a de-investment in Ethereum year to date. We've seen a de-investment in Binance year to date, a de-investment in Polkadot year to date, but we've seen exponential growth in Solana investment. $109 million of institutional investment has come into Solana in the last 6 months. Now, that doesn't sound like that much money, but let's compare it to Cardano. 10 million. A tenth has been put into Cardano as opposed to Solana. Obviously, institutions are seeing something in Solana that they're not seeing in Cardano, and they like what they're seeing. Now, it also seems, and this could be extrapolating a little bit, but it seems like some of this Ethereum investment is being put into Solana and hedged and saying, hey, who knows if this Ethereum merge is going to go okay. Institutions want to have that other kind of Ethereum killer, other, main layer one out there that could eventually take out Ethereum in their portfolios. So we're seeing $109 million so far year to date in terms of inflows by asset. So love to see that. And, some of the usual characters up here, usual suspects, but just to give you guys an idea, we're seeing a lot of pro shares, a lot of 21 shares, and a lot of purpose capital coming in here in terms of year to date flows. So just wanted to update you guys on that. It's been a steady kind of week over week, increase in investment for Solana. We're seeing between like $1 million and $2 million a week in investments, at least as I've been, able to follow this. So very, very interesting to see. And I think that kind of, resets the stage for, hey, where are we at in terms of a buying opportunity for Solana? Obviously, institutions see something. Now, since we've covered all that, we have the backdrop, we know where we're at with Solana. Let's take a look and set some expectations in terms of chart analysis, some technical targets, and give you guys somewhat of a frame of reference here as you watch the chart over the next couple months here. So diving in, the first thing I want to note is Solana bounced at just about the most critical place it could have bounced. So if we had lost this previous support of about $23, $24, we would have been looking at an easy ride down to $13, $15, which would have been another 50% loss. Luckily, we saved that. So a very, very important bounce here just in the last week from Solana. Love to see that, and it was a much needed bounce. Now, the question becomes, is this a, elongated bounce? Is it, are we turning the corner? And that's more of a loaded question, right? Because from a macro view, we're looking extremely, extremely undervalued, right? We're well below the 200-day simple moving average. We're, mid-range on the RSI. The RSI isn't great, but what I've kind of put here in the rectangles is the areas where we've had similar RSI, right? So we've seen here, just in this kind of range-bound movement that we've been in, we've seen the RSI kind of flutter between 35 and then, a high of 45. And the last time we kind of had this fluttering between that, 40, 50, 30 to 50 area, we kind of had this slight downtrend / range bound motion. So this fractal looks very, very similar to this fractal. I think it's possible that we see somewhat of a run up and then a check back down to that support. So what I mean by that is, we kind of hover around here, see that run up similar to this fractal right here. And then maybe we come back and test, a couple more of these supports, right? Now, I don't think that we're out of the woods, right? We have the Fed, we have Ukraine, Russia, inflation's not going anywhere. Interest rates are only going up. So a lot of macro pressure. That's why I think, especially with something like Solana, Bitcoin, or Ethereum, you have to be super, super long-term focused, right? Because if, just less than a year ago, if, Solana was at 150 and I told you, you could get it at 36, you would be jumping on that. Now everyone's scared, right? And that's totally normal. That's totally normal. Everyone's fearful. A lot of uncertainty out there. But at the same time, if you are confident in Solana the way institutions are, this could be a very, very opportunistic time to get involved here with Solana. So the other thing that I wanted to note here now is just to talk about some technical targets. So breaking this out and pulling down this retracement, we are going to see very, very quickly that our next technical target actually isn't until $80. So $80 would be our next technical target on the Fibonacci. That represents almost 100% increase from where we're at now. And that's part of why I think that we're going to be quite range bound for a long time. Now, when I say range bound, I mean we could be range bound within 50 to 70%, right? And for crypto to be range bound, you know, it's not like a stock being range bound. A stock being range bound could be 5-10%. For quite a while. And now, you know, Solana being range bound, we could see 30 to 40% movements, but nothing that's really going to say, hey, we are out of the woods and we are headed for a complete bull market. You know, we're going to the upside. I don't see that happening for a while, but at the same time, you know, this could be a good opportunity to accumulate well under the 200-day simple moving average, as well as at a, you know, semi-palatable RSI down here at about 40. So I would say watch it very, very closely. We had that key bounce here at about 20, you know, 24, high 20s. You know, we didn't get down quite to 24. We wicked down for a second. We didn't get quite there. But I would say, you know, to obviously, you know, this is not financial advice. I'm not an oracle or anything, but I would say that we're likely to be range bound for a bit with the macro stress coming. But our next technical target is about $80. And then from there, we're looking at another target of 116. And again, that's why I think we'll likely be range bound between, you know, where we're at now, which is about mid 30s to, you know, even like 70s, mid 70s. So this rectangle is really my target for the range bound. So why I'm saying range bound so much, why I'm mentioning it so much is because a lot of the times, if you don't understand the ranges and you're not expecting this to come, a 15%, 12% movement, let's say, for example, what just happened, you know, just these last few days, right? We moved, you know, 30, 40% to the upside, but at the same time, that's not necessarily going to be a bounce, right? For like the official turnaround to that bull side, to that bull market upside, right? So you need to set that expectation saying, hey, we could still pump another 40%, but we're not necessarily out of the woods and we could come back down. So that's it. You can probably hear my dog barking in the background. I'm about to go get him. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. Drop a like if it was, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much.